And the weirdest and the scariest part was that I was like having all these dissociative things, but every 2 minutes, every 30 seconds, it depends, every 5 minutes, I would like have this, I don't know, like zam, like short forgetfulness of everything. For example, I would just like sit on the chair and I would see like, I don't know, walls, table. And for a moment, for a brief moment, like fewer seconds, it would be that only these things exist.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, author of the Depersonalization Manual, and today I'm speaking with Paul Marciszkauskas from Lithuania in the Baltic region of Europe. Paul is 30 years old. He first developed DPDR about 2 years ago in late 2021, triggered by a bad weed experience. Over the next year and a half, he struggled with DPDR, but thankfully he has since made a complete recovery. And as he said to me in a recent email, I am 100% cured and healed and going on with my life. And Paul is with us today to talk about his experience with and recovery from depersonalization derealization. Paul, you're very welcome to the channel. Thanks for being with us today.
Yep. Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah, great to have you on the channel. Paul, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Paul. I'm 30 years old. Currently work in sales. Having Actually, I'm having a blast right now. Living a nice life. Well, it wasn't like that like a year ago. Yeah, but now I'm living great. I have a remote job, so I like to spend a lot of time in nature. Yeah, and basically that's it. I have a lovely wife. Yeah, happily married. And yeah.
Paul, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with DPDR and how did it start for you?
Yeah, sure. I can talk from the beginning. I would say that I was experimenting a lot with psychedelics. LSD, magic mushrooms. Oh my God, I don't know what kind of things I did not do. And like a year and a half ago, well, yeah, last year, I smoked some questionable weed and it triggered a huge panic attack. And it was like very huge. I thought that I was having a stroke or I'm dying. It was really deep. And then, it all got started following that panic attack. And basically, I got so depersonalized that I would like every 30 seconds, I would like forget, I don't know how to say, but yeah, I would forget basically everything every 30 seconds. And from that, I would get more anxious. And then after that, I would get more depersonalized and it would be like this journey and I would feel really, really terrible. And yeah, that was like beginning. It was actually triggered by weed exposure.
Paul, can you tell us, in terms of the using LSD and magic mushrooms? So was that in the context of, were you kind of going out into nature and doing it, or was this at parties or at festivals or things?
It was actually both, but basically I was using it for soul searching. I did an ayahuasca with a shaman. I was like, it wasn't like, oh, just let's get wasted. Not that kind of thing. Not that kind of thing. Yeah, but I think that probably in my life I got all the answers much earlier, and I just kept doing it because I think I got addicted to those beautiful states which I would experience then. And yeah, and I think that later on I just did too much, and it all spiraled out of control, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that I would have experienced as well when the DPDR was triggered for me by because mine was from a bad weed experience as well. But one thing that really worried me was that I worried that, like, because I had experimented with drugs before that, that like things had kind of built up, and that this had kind of like pushed me over the edge. So I thought like all the experimentation I had done had now kind of come back to haunt me, like, and I'd be paying the price for it.
Yeah, the same here. Yeah, I thought that I was being punished, something like that, that I overused it and it has built up. And yeah, it was yeah, really a scary experience. And basically, the most scary thought was that, well, will it ever go away? Because there's no like, like schedule. It's not time limited. You don't know when it's going to away. It's not like you took a drug and it will wear off in 5 hours.
Yeah, yeah. Except it feels like it hasn't worn off.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
What something I found interesting as well, Paul, was that I think that, if when people come to these experiences in the context of soul searching, of actually kind of like trying to, acquire new knowledge about yourself and your experience. And when we do that, we tend to like read a lot about the drugs or the experiences, or what to expect, like, or you might, I mean, for me, for example, I was reading a lot of like Terence McKenna and Dennis McKenna and Robert Anton Wilson, Grant Morrison, all that type of stuff. So I think that when I kind of had the experiences, then I read a lot into the experiences because of the education I give myself. Whereas for some people might have like, they're not doing that reading, and then when they have a really, really bad experience on weed or any other drug, they just kind of say, well, sure, it's just a bad experience. Like, whereas if you're reading a lot about it, you think, oh, this has some kind of cosmic universal significance, and that kind of start freaking out about it more because of the context in which you're having it. I think anyway.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the context, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I could say I was well, before that, a little bit over analytical. So when this experience started, it just got out of control. And I remember that when I saw your video first on the internet, I remember that you said this in some of your videos that you can. It's not the time to like now. It's not the time to think those philosophical questions, and I thought, oh my God, I always think about that even when I'm sober. And now in this state, it's like it's impossible. It's am I real or something like that? It was always popping up in the head.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, can you tell us a bit more about the specific weed incident and that panic attack? So you said you smoked weed that was it kind of stronger than you expected, or was it a different strain, or how was that experience different?
Yeah, I actually I was hungover from the party before, and I'm hungover, and the brain is like buzzing, and the weed was I haven't smoked that type of weed, and my friend brought it to me, and then he left, and I smoked it, and then it just the panic came to me, and then I started to having like I don't know how to explain, maybe like states similar to like ayahuasca states, and and the panic triggered to me the words in my head that I'm dying. I could not like pronounce words, I could not like communicate, and the colors has started to shift, the vision changed, and I really, really thought that I'm having a stroke, or that I'm dying, and it was the kind of worst fear, because I could not like comprehend what's going on. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but I could not, I could not like chill, I could not understand what was happening. And luckily I had my wife next to me, so she calmed me down. No, it's okay, you're just having a panic attack. So I was saying, no, I'm dying, and no, it's probably you're having a panic attack. And no, I'm dying, but no. And I calmed down a little bit, and and then I noticed that well, I've come down, but it passed like 2, 3, 4 hours, 5 hours, and that well, I'm not sober, I'm like in a weird state. And the weirdest and the scariest part was that I was like having all these dissociative things, but every 2 minutes, every 30 seconds, it depends, every 5 minutes, I would like have this, I don't know, like zam, like short forgetfulness of everything, like I would sit like on the chair and I would be like, what is going on? I mean, I would lose myself, my surroundings, and I would go into such state that was even beyond myself. Uh, for example, I would just like sit on the chair and I would see like, I don't know, walls, table. And for a moment, for a brief moment, like fewer seconds, it would be that only these things exist. There was no connection with the previous moment. Like normal people have, and it would be very scary, and it would be like, oh my god, and then it would be like, oh, okay, chill, and then 30 seconds later again, and like zaps in my mind, like, yeah. And that was the strongest and the scariest part, that basically I was afraid to go outside, and yeah.
Did your wife smoke the same weed, Paul? Did she
No,
smoke too?
no,
No.
she basically does not smoke
Okay.
weed. Yeah, she
Okay.
well,
Okay.
rarely, she does not. I was like, but interestingly enough, I was like a stoner, I would say. I smoked for 10 years weed, and everything was fine, and then boom, one experience.
Had you had like bad weed experiences before, Paul? I mean, not that bad, obviously, like, but bad
Yeah, but
experiences with it.
no, I had intense experience, but I would always come out of it like, I don't know, I'm a warrior, I survived it,
Right.
something like that, especially on edibles. But it wasn't that bad. It would be scary, and it would be like, oh my god, how long, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't bad. I would not say bad. And yeah, and this one was like out of the rooftops. And so yeah, days went on, like on the third day, because it was really intense. I would just like I would lay in bed, and I would, for example, I would wake up at night, I would be shaking like tremors, and I had very bad physical reactions. I was having diarrhea all the time because my body was like this, like intense. And then depersonalization. And I was thinking, like you said in your videos, like depersonalization comes to protect you from the anxiety. Well, in my view, that it comes as of sort, like it deassembles you, and then the anxiety, so that the anxiety would fall away, but then you become anxious about the depersonalization, and then you roll in that I don't know, wheel of depersonalization and anxiety. And yeah, my point is that I was basically laying in bed and I could not do anything. I was always having like 30-second, or 2 minute, those brain zaps that I would forget everything, and then I would assemble again. And then, oh my God, what is happening? Is anything real? And then again, zap, like dissociative state completely from myself, from surrounding, and then back again. And about on the third day, I decided to go to psychiatrist because I thought that, well, maybe I should get locked up, into a mental institution. I went to the psychiatrist, and she was actually pretty nice. And she told me that it's not a psychosis, but it's actually a depersonalization. She told me that very quickly. And she gave me the medicine. She gave me benzos and I don't know, other medicine. I didn't took it, but I took benzos, and benzos actually not made it worse, but it calmed me down, but my mind got very foggy, and I did not like that feeling much. And I took a half a pill, and then I didn't take it at all. Because it basically sucked. But then I knew she said depersonalization, and then I entered Google, and it was like a fourth or fifth day, and I found you. Yeah, and I watched and I watched your video, and it really stuck with me because when you were going through forums, browsing, everything, everyone says, oh, it's terrible. And your videos would be like, yo, chill, dude. Something like that. It's not that bad. It's pretty common, and I was like, okay, got hope, you know, because I thought like in your videos that I have a depersonalization because I used a lot of psychedelics. So mine is the worst. And I will probably, I won't be able to go back. And yeah, and actually, yeah, and then I watched a couple of videos and I thought, okay, I will acquire DP manual because, well, what else should I do, And it was very nice because I could not read, because I actually, I could not read, and then I started to use audiobook. And yeah, it was very nice. And then, yeah, that's what I want to say. And then when I started to use audiobook, I noticed when you were speaking that like for a brief minute, I'm okay while I'm listening to the conversation. And then you came on to the part that when you remember about your situation condition, then it gets worse because your brain, like, I don't know, pays attention, freaks out, and then boom, boom, all over again. And yeah, and I noticed that I should do some tasks that some calm, regular, normal tasks that help me. I don't know. I was building. I bought a table from IKEA. And I was building, assembling it. And like for a few minutes, I would be okay. Then trying to do that, but very slowly. I was like, tripping all the time, and very slowly, very slow tasks. Maybe listening to the music or watching some shows on TV. That's not anyway.
Yeah,
Not
yeah. That's I'm delighted that you found the book so helpful, Paul. That's really good to hear that the psychiatrist recognized the symptoms and diagnosed you with depersonalization. Did she like give you an explanation about it and kind of like say that it was anxiety and did she just kind of say like, okay, here's a prescription for benzos and come back to me in a few weeks, or what was the plan, if you don't mind my asking?
She did not talk about anxiety, that it was anxiety, that she told me that it was probably a reaction to cannabinoids. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. Anyway, she told me that it was a reaction and I should not smoke it anymore. And she gave me a prescription. And if I feel bad, I should come again. That was it. So basically, it was not explained properly. And it she did not like tell me like the mechanism behind the depersonalization, that it's just a symptom of anxiety. She told me that, oh, this is what it is possible from your symptoms, that this is what you have. And here's the prescription, and you go chill for a while. You'll be okay in 2 weeks. She said like that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, at least I guess it's not, you could have done with a better plan, but I mean, it is great that she knew it and she was able to, and I think for you as well,
Yeah.
I can imagine that just having a psychiatrist saying, okay, well, this is what you have, must have taken a big weight off your shoulders in terms of worrying about what it might not be,
Yeah, but I quickly went back to anxiety spiral again. Well,
Right.
she might be wrong, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This inventor, what does she know?
Yeah, I want a second opinion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, but basically, what worried me that it won't end, and the
yeah,
strangeness of the symptoms. Because sometimes it felt that it is not even related with anxiety. Sometimes I would feel like so dissociated. Then, what I want to talk about is that few weeks later, like 2 weeks later, those forgetfulness brain zaps, as I used to call them, like that I forget immediately, they started to go away, like for a bit. And then I would start notice like I was like more myself, a little bit, but I would notice that I'm all confused, I would like stare at my hand and it would feel alien to me. Like I could not tell what terror I felt like looking into my hand. It felt not real, for example. And when I would walk out to outside, like to throw out the trash, I would like think and how am I walking? How am I moving? How does this work? I don't understand. How am I able to do this? And touch felt very weird. I could not. Also, I could not. If I would go into a crowd, sometimes I would not recognize faces. They were like I would recognize them, but they would all be similar, and I need to get to a person close to actually see his face and to recognize, oh, that's my friend, for example. No. So yeah, a lot of weird symptoms and a lot of dissociative feelings. Yeah, I remember I could not understand. I would feel the feeling and I could not understand the feeling. I would think that, what is that? Like, is it, what is that? And now it's actually hard to remember all of it. But at that time, it was so real. It was so disturbing. And yeah, and I would even say to my wife, I would ask her if this is real, and she would be like, "Oh, yeah." And I think and mm, my first like breakthrough to getting better was that actually I had my wife. Well, she was like reality check for me. She was like, I don't know, this post of reality when we could communicate, and it would like feel that holding on to reality. And then she had a trip and she left for 3 days. And I had no, posts of reality, no lifeguards, like I would say. And yeah, then though during those 3 hard days, only with your DP manual, because I was, I think, lucky that I downloaded it like 7 days after my diagnosis. Yeah, then I learned to be on my own, just like just do it, like push through. But it was really hard.
Yeah. It's it's interesting, Paul, that like we think that we build up these like systems around us, or we kind of these plans for the day of like, if I can have this person or if I can avoid this place, then I know I'll be okay. So like this person or this place or this activity represents a reality check for me. So if I can do this a couple of times a day, I know I'll be fine. But the problem is that behavior keeps the anxiety going, and I certainly did that. I mean, I moved home with my parents when I got anxiety DPDR, and I had a very specific set of things in the house that I could do and I couldn't do. And it was only really when I started pushing myself out of those situations, outside of those situations, as uncomfortable as it felt initially, that I realized that I could do these things. And as you said, the lifeguards, the kind of those guardrails we have around, you start to take them away and realize I can do these things. I don't need to have these reality checks. And it was actually the worry that I needed to have reality checks is what is keeping the anxiety going. And I can start to let that go, Something you mentioned as well, Paul, was the benzos. So I was initially prescribed benzos as well when I first developed anxiety. When I went to the doctor, my first doctor, and I had the exact same experience. So I felt like slightly calmer initially, but then I was just like, I was so tired, and I was exhausted from the anxiety anyway, because I wasn't sleeping properly, I wasn't eating properly. And then the medication just kind of it just kind of puts more of that on top of it. So I think I took them for maybe under a week or something, and I stopped, Some people have better results with them, but I had a very, very similar experience to yours. They didn't. They just made me feel even more tired than I already was. The thing of like kind of staring at your hands as well. It's such a frightening thing when it's happening. But what I spoke to somebody else about, or spoke to another person about this in an interview, was that like, you know, one of the things with recovery is that we get back to like normal day-to-day behaviors, because that kind of trains the anxiety out of existence. It trains us to stop focusing on the anxiety. And one thing we don't do in our normal day-to-day lives is like sit there looking at your hand.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
it's a thing of, it's like you say to yourself, well, if I can stare at my hand for 30 seconds and not like freak out about it, or not think to myself, well, my hand isn't mine, then that's a good sign. But it's like, no, you don't need to do that, because you're in your normal day-to-day life. You're not, no one like takes a break from writing an email to like do this, you know, for 30 seconds. So you don't need to kind of like pass these little tests in order to get away from the anxiety. And it's having those tests that actually can keep the anxiety going. Yeah.
That's true. Now I can wash with my hand and it feels normal, you know. But yeah.
Well, now I do it all day.
It feels great, you know. But the thing you mentioned, that actually anxiety goes and depersonalization goes away when you forget about it. And at first it feels impossible, you know, because it's like it looks like the universe is about to implode. Actually, it's that strong. But then you pretend, oh no, it's great, you know, everything's cool. I'm gonna, you know, to the shop, you know, I'm gonna buy some stuff. Don't pay attention. And then when time passes, well, you know, symptoms a little bit go down, and then something gets your attention, like, I don't know, a movie or a friend's story, and then you talk and you discuss something, and you're like, whoa, 30 minutes without any symptoms, and you know, without even thinking about it, and then you see no symptoms at all. Wow, I feel great, no symptoms at all. And then bam bam, they come back, and then you understand, okay, I gotta keep doing that. But it's not like running away, you know, I gotta keep my mind busy. No, you just gotta step by step, you know, do simple things as you used to do it before, with a little bit of chill and love to yourself, and you'll be fine. And I personally, now I am grateful that I had it. I actually grateful that I had it, because I'm in love with life, like in most profound way. I don't use drugs anymore. Well, yeah, I did not try to do it again. Maybe I could, maybe I could not. I don't care. I don't do it. I'm sober and I'm happy about it. I do sports, and you know, yeah. So
yeah, good to hear.
Yeah, I'm glad that I had it, and out of all my psychedelic searches, experiences, and so on, like I had it, you know, and then yeah, I had a tough time, but no, you know, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Yeah, you know. So now, I usually, yeah, now because when I had it, I was like thinking, if I ever be healthy again, I won't get nervous about like little stupid things, you know, I won't get mad about it. But now I'm back to, you know, a little bit always, and you're in traffic jam and you're always like, oh, come on, you know, something like that. But still, the problems that used to like, well, that I used to like worry about, some things, they do not get me so easily, because I know that I've been through the most difficult experience, I would say, in my life, and I went through, and I feel much more stronger, and then, you know, daily routine doesn't.
Absolutely. You do it. You definitely have a sense of having that experience under your belt, and being that familiar with anxiety makes you less afraid of it, and that is an amazing thing to have going forward. If I could just bring you back to the experience itself as well, Paul. What was there a particular low point that you remember in the experience? Sometime that was particularly difficult for you?
Probably that I had a stroke. I was thinking that I had a stroke and that there's something wrong with me, and I will never able to get out of it because something snapped in my brain, and everything feels unreal. But I was never like people. Some say they are suicidal. I was never suicidal. I was like, fuck it, let's push through and let's do it. I don't know. I just cursed. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's okay.
That's okay.
But yeah, we just gotta push through, and yeah, probably it was the worst because it was for me like was like bam, like straight down, and I was so dissociative. It was like the worst part, and then slowly, steadily, I was getting better. And yeah, after 1 or 2 months, I was extremely better. But then I was hoping to get better automatically, and like after 6 or 7 months, I had like a little bit of downfall actually, because I thought that I'm almost healed, and then it came back, and it came back. Not without my help, of course. I was like engaged. Oh no, I feeling tight, and then it starts like to go automatically, And at what point I was like stressing a little bit out because I came up on this onto like one stage where I was not able to quite clearly understand my thoughts, and it was like gibberish going on in my mind, and I was like, okay, so how do I understand thoughts? And again, you do the analyzing and so on and so on. So basically, yeah, that was the lowest point at the beginning, and then again when I had a setback because, oh my god, I'm back at it again. I've been such a good boy. I've been doing a good job. Like 6 months have passed, and I'm back at it. Not like fully, but no, it still doesn't feel good, and you try to fight it, and that's the problem, I guess. You should like ignore it, like, oh, okay, hi, hi, old friend. I will just make dinner, if it comes again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I would have encountered as well during my recovery, and it's very, very common. Is that you get to a point where you're making loads of progress, and part of like anxiety recovery, it's never like a smooth curve. It's like it's ups and downs all the way. But you do get to a point where you kind of the anxiety it's so under control that if it does ever spike up, which it does sometimes, that you look at it and you go, oh my god, it's back. But the reason that you're actually freaking out about it is not because it's particularly intense, but it's because you've been doing so well for so long, and it feels very bad relative to that. Now, if you'd been experiencing like consistent anxiety in DP, like that day on its own probably wouldn't make any difference to you. But it's because you're doing so well and making such progress that you look at a small like little jump in the anxiety and then say, oh my god, it's back. And also, if you've been making a lot of progress, we sometimes kind of get out of the habits of recovery. So if you have that little spike, then you say, oh, I need to start researching this. Why is this happening to me now? And then of course you kind of start going in the other direction. But it happens to everyone, like kind of on a shorter or longer basis. It's just a part of recovery, and understanding that it's just another opportunity for you to train yourself to say, no, I don't need to focus on this. I have tools to focus away from it, and I can let it go.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like 100% of recovery. It's I think if it would come back, I would not feel worried about it, because it did actually come back, I think, a month and a half or a month ago, let's say, and I just did nothing about it, and then you forget about it. You can just like, you have to like do nothing, and it will go out of yourself. I don't know if I make sense, but
Yeah. and also that like 75% of people will experience DPDR. It is like a perfectly natural feeling to experience if you're stressed out, if you're if you're jet lagged, if you haven't been sleeping well, if you're having an anxious time at work, if your relationship stresses, work stresses, physical symptoms include tension, heart palpitations, and the mental symptoms include DPDR, feelings of disconnection. It is perfectly normal and perfectly natural to experience these from time to time. But what it is saying to you is that like you're under stress, or you're not sleeping enough, or which is the correct interpretation, as opposed to the first time it happened when I thought, oh, I must be going crazy, or I'm losing my mind, or I'm in a dream and I can't wake up. So one of the major benefits of recovery is understanding what the feelings are, what the condition is, that it's like the most common thing in the world. It's like, if you, as I always say to people, if you go through life and you don't experience DPDR, you're in a minority, because most people will experience this. But sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, but short term. Yeah.
But absolutely. Yeah. Most people experience DPDR short term. They don't pay attention to it and it fades away. In the same way that for most people will experience heart palpitations, but the vast majority of people will just they'll barely notice it, or they'll say, oh, my heart's fluttering a bit or whatever. But some people will focus on the heart palpitations and say, I'm having a heart attack and I'm going to die and I have to go to hospital right now. And all they're doing is interpreting that same symptom differently. And it's the exact same with the feelings of DPDR. Focusing on it and saying, I'm going crazy, I'm in a dream and I can't wake up, I'm high and I can't come down. None of these things are happening, but it's in the focusing on it that causes the feedback loop that you mentioned earlier, Paul, that feedback loop to start. And the thing you mentioned as well about in the recovery process, where you start to have hours and then days where you realize at the end of it that you haven't been thinking about it. And the way that I often describe this to people is it's like there's these the windows of time in which you're not experiencing DPDR get bigger and bigger. But the thing is that you only notice them after you've walked past them, after you're away from them, and then you turn back and you say, oh wow, I haven't thought about it in 6 hours. I watched that whole film, well, not 6 hour film, but I watched the whole movie and I didn't think about it at all. But it's only when you turn back and look at it, it can't work like that if you're staring at it saying, why am I thinking about it? Why isn't this going away? Because that just communicates to your brain that it is actually important. But it's afterwards when we look back at the day or those couple of hours and we say, wow, I didn't think about it. And then if you catch yourself thinking about it, then take your attention and point it elsewhere.
Because when those 6 hours passes, you look at it. At first, 6 hours passes, you look at it, and then you say, wow, I did a good job. I didn't think about it. But once you think about it, then it creeps up again. At first, But then later on, you can do it. And then, for example, now I'm talking with you about the depersonalization, and it's completely fine.
Absolutely.
And I even sometimes I cannot even remember the state. How it felt, it does not I cannot even remember actually how it felt. I remember that I was stressed, but how was it possible to forget everything, the feeling it fades away in my mind. I cannot even remember it. You I think you mentioned it in your manual, it's a state specific memory.
Exactly. Yeah. And this and for everyone watching as well who worries that, okay, I'm in the middle of DPDR. How can I recover if I can't remember what being normal felt like? And this was a huge thing for me. It's a huge thing for everybody who experiences it. because it feels like it makes sense. How can I get back to normal if I can't remember it? But this is the thing. That's not your job. You don't need to remember normal to get back to normal. This is literally your anxiety levels going up and down. It's not about remembering the past or the future. And when you recover, which you will do, state-specific memory works in such a way that you look back on the experience. And same with me, Paul. Like, I mean, like I can remember like being in my parents' house and not being able to go to the bathroom because there was a mirror in the bathroom and the mirror made me have a panic attack and I couldn't do anything. I remember not being able to look up at the sky because it freaked me out so much. I remember all of it, but I can't remember the feeling. Like I can't relate to it anymore. And the reason for that is because at that time, my anxiety levels were 10 out of 10 all day long. And now they're back down to normal. So I'm not thinking about these experiences through the filter of anxiety, which also going back to something else you said, Paul, was talking about DPDR. So people often ask me, well, how is it possible that you're able to talk about, like, if you went through this for years, like, how is it possible that you're able to talk about it without it setting off a panic attack? But the reason is that, like, the subject itself is not frightening. Like DPDR it's not inherently a frightening thing. It's actually very interesting. But in order to speak about it from a non-anxious point of view, or when we speak about it from a non-anxious point of view with your anxiety levels back down to normal, that's when it becomes an interesting subject. But the content of the thought, the content of the experience is not inherently frightening. It's that when we try and talk about it, when our levels of anxiety are 10 out of 10, that's when we start to have panic attacks. That's when we say, oh, I can't discuss this. Don't say that to me. This thing sets me off. This thing freaks me out. But as your recovery continues, you get back to normal, you start to look at these things and go, you actually think to yourself, God, that was a really interesting experience. It was pretty scary when I was going through it, but it's actually a fascinating topic.
Yeah, and actually, it brings me smile. I'm always smiling because, well, I cannot actually discuss with anyone because I don't know anyone who had like this type of experience. And now it's really nice to discuss it because I remember how out of space I was, and now how everything is normal and it's okay. And I wish someone told me at that time that I was definitely going to be okay, but no one could, and you have to go through it. Yeah, and that's what I would recommend for anyone, that it's okay. I mean, it's definitely okay. It's not that bad. It's not like you lose a foot or something like that.
Yeah.
You'll be fine, and there is no like accumulated damage to yourself and like that. No. You do accumulate, and then you get like some brain disease. No, it's not right.
No, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Paul, how was the DP manual helpful in your recovery?
Oh yeah, it was very good. Well, because it first stopped the forum searching, stop everything, and focus on to me. I will gather all your problems, and it helped me a lot because I would put in the earplugs and I would walk around the flat and I would like, oh yeah, that's right, and then I would laugh sometimes, and okay, keep it going, and I would talk like a little bit with you, in that state. And because I never read it, I always listened to it, all the audiobooks, because for me reading was impossible, because the letters would move out and I could not focus, and so on. So yeah, it was really helpful at first because I could focus attention, and I would see that the gap of even while you were talking about the personalization, but when I was listening about it in a way that it would probably help me, I noticed that those gaps of normalcy would increase. So then I would just listen like for a voice, like a meditation. I don't know. So like it was like an anchor that would pull me in like normal levels of my mind frame, I would say, like that. And then later on, then I would, listen to the tips, how it may creep in, and it was really helpful. And also there was the part which we have not discussed, and I think it was discussed in the manual, forgot to talk about it. I noticed the increase in my anxiety and in DP from some of the foods. At first, it was really big. Like if it's unhealthy food, like junk food, it would definitely spike me up. And yeah, that's what I would recommend people if they just had DP and it's very strong. Try to avoid spicy foods, some bad junk food. Maybe even I noticed that I cut off gluten, and I would not get those spikes up again. So yeah, so DP manual was very, very useful for me in many ways. It basically it opened a way that how to train your mind, because don't think about elephants. You cannot do that. You think about elephants, and it just showed me that there's another way to take off the mind. Yeah, and also I just wanted to mention the foods before I forget, because it was a trigger for me, because I would remember that I one time I eat a spicy food, and maybe it was, but I don't know. I think if it's inflammatory food, it might a little bit tick your internal processes, and then you react to them, and it make the spiral go down again the hill. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, yeah. And it could also be just kind of like even an awareness of eating a spicy food, and wondering, is this going to trigger my anxiety reaction? And then the awareness of it makes the anxiety happen. I mean, in terms of the nutrition, I mean, yeah, I know I kind of I talk more about this in the book, but yeah, it is really just about kind of like eating a kind of a balanced diet, and like staying away from kind of like things like caffeine in particular, just
yeah, well, yeah, definitely that's trigger. It's impossible for me. No, I don't drink coffee now. I don't plan it, but for that time, it's impossible. Yeah, coffee is like off limits, because it's like it's a stimulant, and you don't want to. You want to rest at that moment, I would say. Yeah, so
yeah.
that's for me. But yeah, like that was the only thing. I even could drink Coca-Cola. Actually, it was okay, but like coffee, no, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the gluten, I noticed.
Yeah. And Paul, what did something that people kind of ask me a lot is like, what did the recovery process actually feel like? So I think you kind of mentioned earlier about kind of realizing that like time has passed where you look back and say, oh, I didn't experience DP in that time. But can you tell us more about like what the actual recovery process felt like on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, it felt relieved. I felt relieved, but it was slow. You would not feel like, oh yeah, I recovered. No, it was slow. And actually, sometimes you would not, later on, I would not notice that I'm recovering. It would be like, it would feel like I noticed, like, even in those small times. So I would notice like, oh yeah, I had a good month previously, it would feel afterwards like yeah. And of course then I would be happy, I would laugh a lot because at first I could not do any exercise, because I love to sport, like it's like my hobby. I thought it would help me to like to run away the thoughts, and I like to do some lifting, for example. But it did not work for me, because afterwards I would feel like, I don't know, jolted, like my whole because your body tense up, and you would feel like, I don't know, bad after an hour. So I quit sports, and then later on I was able to do that again. So I was pretty happy about that. But basically, it felt like it was very slow process, and you could enjoy. At first, I enjoyed a lot of it. That I was like, I'm coming back. It's good. I can have conversation with people, but later on, you forget about it. and you, for example, me, and I went on to my routine, and then you watch and you're saying like, oh yeah, I had a good summer, something like that. 3 months have passed by. I had some, because then the personalization completely vanished, and then I was having some panic attacks, a little, but there was no depersonalization. I would be having like, oh, I would feel like, I don't know, like the room is spinning, I need to sit down, like breathe a little bit, but it was like panic without depersonalization, because that went completely away. There was no like internal thoughts like, oh, I'm not getting out of it, something like that. And no dissociative feelings like everything is confused and so on. I would feel panic attacks, and then they gradually went down. Sometimes even now you can have an anxiety spike, but it's okay. It's not a problem. So yeah, I think that my like recovery felt like that I forgot about it. That was the main thing. You just forget about it. You don't keep track of it, because at first it was like, hey, half an hour, yeah, that's great, I'm feeling better. And then later on, it's like, oh, I was busy, and now I'm tired.
Yeah, I was too
Yeah, I'm
busy to
tired
check
from
in on my
work.
anxiety.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Sometimes it would get worse, and then you check again, and then you understand that by checking it, forget about it. And then life comes back in normal ways, and then yeah. And I remember that at the first stages, I was thinking about people who are bored, and I was thinking that, oh, this is like such a good thing to have, boredom. I wish I could have that, because I'm always stressed, flying out of my mind. And boredom, it's such like a luxury, to have such thing as boredom, and sit and say, oh, I'm bored. That's great. I'd love to have it. And now I'm sometimes bored, and it's not that nice.
It's not great.
No, I need to find it. So
Yeah. Good to hear. Good to hear. So big question. So Paul, I think you've probably answered already, especially at the start of the call, but I'll ask you again. So now that you've recovered, is normal actually getting back to normal? This is the big question people ask me all the time. Is it actually getting back to normal?
Is my life actually getting back to normal?
So what once you recover from DP, do you actually get back to normal?
Oh yeah, sure, 100%. I mean, I don't use drugs anymore. They were normal for me back then. So yeah, it's a bit different, but it's actually better. It's actually better after this experience. When you have it under your belt, it's actually better. And yeah, it's great. And I can chill, I can laugh. You just don't. What I would recommend to people who are like struggling at at the center of the storm, just take your time and do not worry about because the most worrying thing is, will I ever be normal again? So don't worry about it. You'll be great, because I think I had very intense depersonalization, very intense. And it just when I followed the manual, watched, did all the things that the manual told me, and tried to relax, tried to forget about the personalization, it just kind of went away. And if the spikes come back of the anxiety, it's not a problem. You just like, you don't focus about it, and that's it. Yeah. And actually, yeah. And from the personalization, after you get back, and it's actually 100% normal, everything as it was, you have personally, me, I have better appreciation for life. I'm really happy. I'm really grateful that I have such a present as life. So yeah, everything's gonna be okay.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. That's a beautiful way of putting it. Paul, it's been so lovely speaking with you today, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us on the channel. I know there's a lot of people watching this who are going to find your information and advice extremely useful. And I'm delighted that they said the DP manual was helpful in your recovery too. So listen, enjoy life post recovery. Enjoy the country life and the city life in Lithuania. And thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you. Yeah, for the book and for the interview.
Yeah, a pleasure. Great to meet you, Paul. Take care. Bye-bye.